We're looking at the issue of adoption, and we have two guests here with different perspectives, and hopefully at the end of this conversation, you'll be more informed as to the issue of adoption in Ghana. To my extreme left is a social worker who's had experience in the UK. He's currently relocated back in Ghana, and a regular on Star 103.5 FM. I've interviewed her before, back in those my radio days. Barbara Spence, you're welcome to GH Today. Happy New Year, by the way.
Same to you. Happy New Year.
Okay. Yes, and on the right of Barbara is a lady who needs no introduction.
Yeah.
She's
the president's
controversial, to say the least. But did you know that she's also the mother of an adoptive child? So she has not academic, but real life experience with what it takes to adopt a child and look after one. The one and only Valentina. You know her as Ifya Schwarzenegger. Ifya, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you here.
I like your set.
You love our this is a palace, actually. She's Queen Bee, I'm King Calf, so you're welcome to our palace.
And did you just call Ifya Valentina?
That's her name.
I never knew.
Oh, yes, now you know.
Where have you been hiding this name?
She was born in February, right?
My birthday is about 14 days away.
14 days away.
Oh, that's why you're full of love. Oh, my goodness.
That's why the president can't do without.
There she goes again.
Let's talk about adoption.
Okay.
I'm going to start with you first, because you have experience with it. Tell us your experience with adopting a child in Ghana.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. Adopting a child in Ghana is not easy. Talking about going through the legal and the right processes, they keep saying adoption is free, but adoption is not free. And I think if the governing body can do something to help the children out there, because we are not doing the children any favor when you have to go through a lot. You have to pay a lawyer, pay this, just to get the right process. We are not doing the children any favor.
Let's go through it like one after the other. How does it all start? So yes, you decide that you want to go in for adoption.
It's also, well, let's say, due to the nature of my late husband's demise, and the person that murdered him, his story was he was an orphan that was brought up to know he's a criminal. And after listening to his story, I felt guilty. I felt society is letting down innocent children. Society is ignoring children till they become criminals, and we start pointing fingers at them. Society is overlooking certain things. Hence, we have so many criminals across the world. Why? The children out there, they don't know why they are left there. There are children in homes that they don't even get food to eat. They don't get, some of them, all they need is that little love. Just to tell him, I love you. Just to tell him you are special. But it doesn't happen. So when I came to Ghana, I took it upon myself to visit the orphanages with the little that I have. I have 5 orphanages across. I have some at the Volta region, Ashanti region, mostly at the Eastern region. Then this particular town, when I go to the orphanage, I heard the story of an old woman who is blind and has been abandoned. She's a widow. So when I go to the orphanage, I go and visit.
I love this picture.
My princess.
So who's this baby?
My daughter, dear Penna.
Oh, that's your own. Okay, so you adopted. The one you adopted?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
How old was she when you adopted her?
When I took her, she was less than a month.
And how old is she today?
She's 18 months, by the grace of God.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there was this old lady who was blind and abandoned that I decided to make a foster mother out of her. So when I go to the village to see the children, I actually shop and buy other things as I would do to my mother to her. So she called for me. The long short of it is when I went there, her child or her daughter, who is a wayward person, have come to dump a day-old baby with her and run away. It was so sad. The woman is blind. The baby at that time, they had been given milk and water, a day-old. She was 3 days when I saw her, and all they feed her with is water and milk. She had been eaten by ants because she was dropped in a dustbin and all that. So I took her. The woman told me, I'm giving you a gift, and I want you to hold on to it for me. I don't know why, but I feel you are the only person I can trust you with that gift with. Initially, I thought she was going to bring gold or something. And then she gave me the little girl. So I asked her what name I should give her. And she said, any name that comes into my mind. I chose Adia Pena because precious things are not easy to come by.
Mm-hmm.
That's Adia Pena.
Yeah, that's Adia Pena. Precious things are not easy to come by. And that's the meaning of her name. Fast forward, and I went and reported to the police. I told my lawyer about it, and I brought the child to the hospital. She was in the hospital for a little over a month because of her health, and then the hospital gave her to me. I took her to church, and I christened her. Then I started the process with my lawyer, and I must say, it was hectic. It cost me, looking at my salary, to get official adoption was too much.
How much did it cost you?
I wouldn't like to say it, but it's close to about $2,000.
In Ghana?
In Ghana. And they say adoption is free. What am I saying? I brought Pena to my life, and my life has never been the same. She has taught me to be a better mother. She has taught me so much patience. She has added so much to my life in terms of blessing, because every day with her is blessings upon blessings. I used to be somebody that when I close from work, I would like to hang around with her, in town with friends. But ever since my daughter came into my life, I knock off 12 o'clock and everybody will tell you, I go home to my child. Oh. I mean, she's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
And you have 2 biological ones as well?
I have 2 biological ones. I have 2 other adopted children that they live in the home. They are more like a foster mother to them. So they are boys as well, and they are in the orphanages. One is at Sugakope, and then the other one is at Otuasu.
I'm going to get through to you, Barbara, for the UK perspective, but this is the question I'm asking. So do you have an adopted child? Would you adopt a child? What would be your reason to adopt a child and call your own? Is it simply love for the child, as Efia so eloquently showed, or is it out of a need, for example, your inability to have a child of your own? How do you bond with children who you adopt, and how do you nurture them the best way a parent should? Would you love them? Do you love them as your own biological children? Now, in May 2013, the government placed a temporary ban on adoption in the country in order to, they say, restructure and then reform the adoption process. And now the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Honorable Nana Letha, indicated that adoptions were suspended because of this reason, that there had been several cases of abuse in the system. Yes. Now, some guardians desire to have their children sent abroad, and then they push their children on people, and without going through the correct adoption process, and then without taking also the case of the children into consideration. So we joined, as I said earlier, if you just joined us, well, you're welcome. You're joined by Ifya Schwarzenegger. She's a TV and radio personality, and she has her own adopted daughter of 18 months. You saw that beautiful picture of that lady just giggling away and being very happy. She's also a mother of 2 biological children. And then as well as Barbara Spins, who is a very experienced social worker who has worked extensively with young people. Her experience was from the UK, so she's in a position to tell us how we can compare what happens in the UK with what happens in Ghana. Barbara, so what's the situation in the UK, and how does it compare with what happens here in Ghana?
Well, basically, I think in Ghana, what the problem is the structure. It's in the background, but whether it's practiced. Because in the UK, obviously, the meaning of adoption is where a process happens for the parental responsibility of a child to be transferred to an adopted parent. And once that is done, obviously, it's not reversible. So you cannot go and adopt a child and then say, oh, I made a mistake, I don't want it. That's why it's a long list of process that you have to go through. There need to be that the child that you want to adopt is available for adoption. For instance, if a child in the UK is in the care system, on their record, there must be something called a placement order. If there's a placement order on the child, then it means the child is available, maybe to be placed in fostering or to be adopted. And if you agree to adopt a child, then the process begins. where there are different levels of assessments. The most important one is actually assessing the potential adoptive parents to find out who they are, what do they do, where do they come from, and what's their background, what parental background did they have. If they have any children, how are those children looked after? Are they really nurtured and cared for as children needs to be? Because you're working under the Children's Act and you have a parameter of what is expected of a child with their parents. So you're doing all that research. Their criminal records. If they have extended family, what is the connection with the extended family? And if, you know, in the extended family, there's a likelihood of somebody to impact on this new child in the family, what will that impact be? Is there anything that we need to be worried about? And also, the aim is to perfectly match the child. There's no point saying this child is available, and because you want to be an adoptive parent, we think, oh, yippee, there's somebody there to give them. No. We need to assess you. We need to also make sure the needs of the child. If they're in the care system, yes, we have a rough idea, or we have an idea who this person is. If they're a special needs child, we need to have specialist reports, which will say to you that, you know, these are the needs of the child. Will you be able to meet it? If you agree, what level of support that social services will still have to continue to give you. And once all those research and, you know, assessments, specialist reports are all done, and then it can be completed, and then be decided that, yes, this adoption can proceed. And if it's to be proceed, every report that is there must indicate that we are in support, because we've done the appropriate assessment and it's very clear that this child can be adopted, or this parent who's come forward, they are suitable for this child. Because it's very, very important that the child's best interest is at heart. It's very, very important that you're understanding. Because, you know, to adopt, for me, is a cocktail of emotions. You know, you're excited, you're happy, you're anxious, and at the same time it's frightening. Because it depends on, you know, good for Efia, she got a baby. If you're coming to...
a few days old, right?
Yes.
Come there, actually.
Yeah. If you're coming to adopt a child
Yes.
who's a toddler, a teenager, you know, what are you bringing to your home? Do you really know? So you are allowed to actually ask questions, to explore, to find out who this child is. Because you may have seen them and then fallen in love with them. But which side of him or her have you seen? And can you cope with that? Because you need to be very, very sure, and the social services need to be very sure, because as much as we want all the children out of the care system, we also don't want a repetitive system where they come to your home and then, oh, no, that's not what I signed up for. The child ends up into the system. Even though we say that adoption is irreversible, however, if we find that the child with you now develops a need, social services has to pick it up.
Let me just pick you up on something you said earlier about the fact that adoption is irreversible.
Yeah.
You cannot now adopt somebody and then the parents now come back for it. Yeah. And I will ask you that question, Efia, in a short while. So we'll be going to also, we went to the streets to find out what people thought about adoption.
Okay.
We want to just get that, and then I'll come back to you, Efia, on the question of adoption and even the difference between adoption and fostering. You're watching GH today. We're looking at the issue of adoption. We hit the streets to ask you what you thought about adoption, and this is what you told us.
I think adoption is good, because there are many young ones out there who need love and care and people support. And I think when you adopt these children, you don't have to maltreat them. You just show them love and care.
In the Bible, it was said that those days, when someone commits sin, it will live till their children, like, they reap from it. But nowadays, the New Testament lets us know that when you commit sin, like, the sins live with whoever commits them. Have you seen? So I don't think when someone has the idea that someone has gone to, like, someone is a thief, or a child's father is a thief. So when I go in to adopt that child, there may be the probability that the child become a thief. I don't go with that.
Adoption is good if you have enough money and you can take good care of the baby that you are going to take. It's good. So because when you go to children's home, there are so many children there where they don't have parents and they are there. So if you have money and you can take good care of them, it's good to adopt them.
My thought on adoption, it's like, to me, I'll take it, it's on two sides. If I'm going for an adoption and I have a child, well, maybe I want more kids around me, that's why I'll go for an adoption. Or if I don't have a child at all and I go for an adoption, that means I love kids. There's some kind of bond between me and kids. If I can't have it on my own, then I'll go for an adoption.
Adoption is cool if you are well-to-do and then you have money. Why won't you adopt? You can adopt, and then it will be as a blessing unto you if you adopt. So adoption is cool.
In GH today, we're looking at adoption. Our guests, Barbara Springs and Ifya Schwarzenegger. Ifya, do you fear for the day the parents of Adiapana will come back and take the child away?
Never. Never, because one, officially she's mine, but besides
where are the
that,
documents?
It's with my lawyer.
Okay.
But besides that, it will be a blessing. Adiapana is a blessing in my life, and I want to be a blessing in her life. And it will be a blessing if Adiapana get to get two mothers. Because listen, there wouldn't be another mommy. I'll forever remain her mommy. So if there is another parent, and I feel, you know what, you can do more to support my daughter, why not? But I don't want to wake up and see a drunk, irresponsible woman showing up in my house telling me this is my child, because that is not what my daughter sees as a mother. So if whoever that wants to come and claim ownership of Adiapana possesses responsibility and decency as the one that I give her in the house, why not? She deserves
You
the
talked
best.
about how that the process is still ongoing.
Yeah.
How long has it been?
It's been a while. I mean, it's been a little over a year.
Okay.
And I think the reason why they also don't want a hastiness is to find out how you treat the child.
So do you get some checks, as in, like visits from the social welfare department?
All her weighing cards, anytime I take her to the hospital, I do a photocopy and everything for my lawyer to have a look at it. It is for the good of the child, because I have seen so many children being abused, even in the orphanages. Even in the orphanages. So I do encourage Christian parents, if you don't want to adopt in, foster.
Yes.
Foster the child.
And I guess that brings us to that, conversation.
Foster that child.
And what's the difference?
The difference between fostering a child and adopting a child is, adopting a child, Adiapana is my child. Fostering a child is, I'm taking care of somebody's child. Like my two boys, I know I am taking care of somebody's children, but I'm giving them all the love a mother is supposed to give them, but they are not mine.
Okay. Yeah. In Adiapana's case, you have gone through the legal
She's my daughter.
Yes.
Adiapana is my
child. Your daughter.
I say she's my blood. I say that a lot. She's my blood. And funnily, we share the same blood group.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
good.
interesting. Yes.
She was made for you. But that is the essence of the difference, isn't it?
Okay.
It's whether somebody's taking the responsibility of care and the legal parental responsibility has not been taken away. So you're fostering the person. I mean, in the UK, you foster a child, you bring them home, social services gives you feeding money, clothing money, and pay you to do that.
Okay.
So that is a good process, whereas she's doing it for free. Nobody's, even perhaps social services and or Department of Social Welfare are not aware of it. But that's one of the problems here.
I'm trying to relate the experience, the UK experience, with what we have down in Ghana. You've worked with a lot of agencies that work also with children and the social welfare department and all of that. How would you describe the system that we have here?
The system that we have in terms of adoption, it has been suspended, but they still have adoptions being done under special circumstances.
Okay, though it's been suspended?
Yes. If you find that it's a special, for instance, I think one of the reasons they give is perhaps your age might come out of, because with the Ghana system, you need to be at least 21 years older than the child you adopt.
Yes.
You must be 25 years, and you have to do, I think the initial thing is actually doing this home study report, and you have to make sure that you're adopting the child in the region you live. They have all of those connotations. So if you want to adopt a child now, you can do it if the child has special needs, if there's age-relation issues, or if it's biological family trying to adopt the child. Because you can only adopt an orphan in this country, whereas it's not that in the UK. You can only, in Ghana, there must be an orphan for you to adopt them. And if, because of the special circumstances, you have to get it approved by the Department of Social Welfare before you can even go to the lawyers, as Efia has done. So the processes are different. And I think one of the issues we have is lack of awareness and knowledge in our society. And social care or Department of
Right to information.
Yes. It's what we don't have. It's what we don't have. So you find that people ask the most simplest of questions. And you are inclined to say, why don't you know that? But it's because it's not available.
Yeah.
It's not available for you to actually know. I mean, what does social welfare do? You ask somebody in the street, they're not.
Let's ask Efia, what is your experience being with social welfare since Adia Pena came into your life?
Since Adia Pena came into my life, it's nice, but since I started dealing with orphanages, the social welfare hasn't been nice. Why am I saying it? I have a case in Otuase. Otuase is a farming community that there are a lot of orphans and abandoned children. Even some of the girls are raped, and then when they have the child, they just leave the child. Then there is this blind man who went around to gather these children and put up an orphanage. The social welfare at Eastern Region woke up one day and said, you can't do that. A blind man cannot have an orphanage. Ba, 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 ba. I was there with the UTV crew when the social workers came in a company of policemen in guns. So guess what happened? The children that has been gathered in a house. And hold on, this blind man has been taking care of those children for over 4 years until we discovered him and made a news out of it. Social welfare from 4 years, we don't know where they are, came from nowhere with police and guns. So children as young as 3 years, they all run into the bush. Kwame Nkrumah Tikesi of OKFM is my witness. We were in that village for 4 days, searching bushes for children. Because this is a remote village. You come with police and guns and say you are going to take away their father.
And so what happened? Did we find the children eventually?
Some of them, we never found them again.
Till today?
Till today.
And we're talking children as young as 3 years.
3 years.
And what has been the social welfare's position on this?
The position is the blind man doesn't have license to operate an orphanage. So is that the correct way to come and take the children away?
As social services, our job is double-edged sword. Yeah, because you work for the state, and at the same time you're trying to support the people in the community. I see where they're coming from, because if somebody is going to open an orphanage, there must be a process, there must be a criteria so that it can be regulated. But where I would disagree with that interruption is actually to say, yes, you have gathered these children in need, and they are children in need. So, because you are not qualified to look after them, we need to then place the children where we feel comfortable, we know the rules are being obeyed, we know they are meeting the criteria. So you don't just come and say, well, shouldn't have done it. So therefore, scatter the children.
Without cutting you, as we speak now, some of the children are in the village, not schooling, not being cared of. When I go there, the little food I can give them, I give them, and I come back.
So for you, the social welfare needs to do more.
The social welfare didn't do any good to those children. Because the blind man is the only man that's opened the school in that community. And I'm talking about 5 to 6 farming communities. He's the only man that has got school, that was giving the children education, that was giving the children some sort of covering. You came, scattered the school. They took the blind man to court. I had to pay legal fees till now.
You know what? We actually invited social welfare to be part of this conversation. They say they are restructuring, so they couldn't be part of this.
We are not condoning, or we are not condoning the fact that you gather children with no document or anything. But he has done it for 4 years.
And you think that they could have approached it differently?
They should then come in and give you the
necessary support. He has done it for 4 years.
Okay.
Then you come in with a gun, scatter the children.
And now we see where the passion.
We see where the passion is. Definitely, yeah.
Yes. The social welfare, some say, has failed Ghanaians.
Oh, yes.
Do you agree?
You see, what I'll say to that is because I haven't worked for Ghana social welfare, I am not in a position to say that. But from the little I've seen, and for me, when I came, even trying to register myself as a social worker, I'm registered in the UK with the Healthcare Professional Council. You have my records on internet. You can look at it. I wanted to register myself because I want to work in my country and bring back the little that I've learned. And it has been very difficult. I've been to at least 3 social services offices and come away with nothing. I will kept being referred back to the ministry.
I don't want to begin to share my experience. I've been there time without numbers.
I've actually now finally found out that how I can register. And the requirements they're asking me for is unattainable. Not for, then I'll have to be around here for about at least 3 years to be able to say, okay, here is. And that's just because of the references that they need.
I don't want us to dwell too much on them, on the social welfare, because we threw out an invitation to them, and they said they are in some process of restructuring, but they will honor our invitation and then speak to us and speak to the issues. I want to end this conversation with you, Ifya, because you are the mother of an adoptive child. Will you one day tell her that she's adopted?
Well, halfway, looking at my status, I am a known figure. People saw me and they didn't see me pregnant. So even if I don't tell my daughter, somebody might. I was telling her earlier, I am bringing up a very strong-minded girl. What has sustained me till now was the upbringing my father brought me. We've talked about my father before. My father taught me how to be strong, how to not allow certain things to weigh me back. And that's the upbringing I'm giving my child.
Does your family approve of you adopting this?
She is named after my mother. Okay. I should have brought a picture of her. She's in the house with my mother now. Adia Pena is called Nanecha because my mother, the queen mother of our village, is called Nanecha. She's named after my mother, who is alive. And the bond is just unbelievable. I will encourage people to adopt. If my daughter comes today and tell me they said I was adopted, I'll tell her God have a special way of making all of us parents. That was how I got you. There is nothing wrong with that.
Let me finally ask how the reaction from your boys, the twins, since
they are inseparable. When I got Adia Pena in the hospital, I came
and that's them.
Yeah.
Do they ask why she's darker than them?
No.
They don't?
No. They understand.
Because your children are biracial.
Yeah.
Yes.
They understand that she is my adopted daughter, but she is their biological sister.
Probably the sister they never had.
The sister, exactly. And you know, they are 14. They will be 15 this year, and their sister is only 18 months. So you can just imagine.
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
I love the way she deals with them.
You're blessed. You have babysitters.
Them and them.
Exactly.
You have lots of babysitters at home.
They'll definitely look after her.
Barbara, we're calling this a wrap now. And thank you for sharing the UK experience. I hope that as you continue to work with all of these bodies here in our country, you will kind of impact, that knowledge. So that we're able to practice the best care when it comes to children and indeed adoption in our country.
Before I go, let me quickly add that there is nothing wrong in adopting a child. No. There is nothing wrong if you can give a child genuine love. There is nothing wrong. There are lots of them out there. And even if you don't want to bring them home, please be a foster parent. There is so much blessing in it. If I'm to start counting my blessings, ever since Adia Pena came into my life, I will not finish today.
And a little add-on to that. Obviously, it's not all sweet nothing.
Yeah.
Every child, your own.
No, the same processes, the puberty stages, every stage
so just
where
be
you
ready.
have to deal with.
But if you have love, you can deal with every problem that your child brings.
Alrighty.
Love conquers all. Thank you, Barbara.
Yes.
Thank you, Ifya.
Thank you.